Jai Jai Shri Chaitanya, Jai Nityananda.
Jai Jai Shri Chaitanya, Jai Nityananda.
Jai Advaita Chandra, Jai Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Reading today from the Sri Chaitanya Chaitamrita, Adi Lila chapter 3, text 98. Loka gati deki acharya koruna hridoy. Vichar koren lokir koi chehita hoy. Loka gati, the course of the world. Deki, seeing. Acharya, Advaita Acarya. Karuna Hridoy, compassionate heart. Vichar koren, considers. Lokero, of the world. Koiche, how. Hito, welfare. Hoi, there is. Translation. Seeing the activities of the world, the Acharya felt compassion and began to ponder how he could act for the people's benefit. Purport: this sort of serious interest in the welfare of the public makes one a bona fide Acharya. An Acharya does not exploit his followers. Since the Acharya is a confidential servitor of the Lord, his heart is always full of compassion for humanity and its suffering. He knows that all suffering is due to the absence of devotional service to the Lord, and therefore he always tries to find ways to change people's activities, making them favourable for the attainment of devotion. That is the qualification of an Acharya. Although Sri Advaita Prabhu himself was powerful enough to do the work, as a submissive servitor, he thought that without the personal appearance of the Lord, no one could improve the fallen condition of society. In the grim clutches of Maya, the first-class prisoners of this material world wrongly think themselves happy because they are rich, powerful, resourceful, and so on. These foolish creatures do not know that they are nothing but play dolls in the hands of material nature, and that at any moment, material nature's pitiless intrigues can crush to dust all their plans for godless activities. Such foolish prisoners cannot see that however they improve their position by artificial means, the calamities of repeated birth, death, disease, and old age are always beyond the jurisdiction of their control. Foolish as they are, they neglect these major problems of life and busy themselves with false things that cannot help them solve their real problems. They know that they do not want to suffer death or the pangs of disease and old age, but under the influence of the illusory energy, they are grossly negligent and therefore do nothing to solve the problems. This is called Maya. People held in the grip of Maya are thrown into oblivion after death, and as a result of their karma, in the next life they become dogs or gods, although most of them become dogs. To become gods in the next life, they must engage in the devotional service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Otherwise, they are sure to become dogs or hogs in terms of the laws of nature. The third-class prisoners, being less materially opulent than the first-class prisoners, endeavour to imitate them, for they also have no information of the real nature of their imprisonment. Thus, they also are misled by the illusory material nature. The function of the Acharya, however, is to change the activities of both the first-class and third-class prisoners for their real benefit. This endeavour makes him a very dear devotee of the Lord, who says clearly in the Bhagavad Gita, that no one in human society is dearer to him than a devotee who constantly engages in his service by finding ways to preach the message of Godhead for the real benefit of the world. The so-called acharyas of the age of Kali are more concerned with exploiting the resources of their followers than mitigating their miseries. But Sri Advaita Prabhu, as an ideal acharya, was concerned with improving the condition of the world situation. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhaktavrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Translation again. Seeing the activities of the world, the Acharya felt compassion and began to ponder how he could act for the people's benefit. We're beginning our build-up to the most auspicious occasion of Gaur Purnima, appearance of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Today, beginning with the appearance of Sri Advaita Acarya. We read in the Chaitanya Charitamrita how before Krishna appears in this world, he sends incarnations of his respectable predecessors. And that is also the case with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who is, of course, Krishna himself in the mood of Srimati Radharani. Radha Bhava Jyoti Suvalitam Nomi Krishna Swarupam. So before Mahaprabhu's appearance, he first sends incarnations of his respectable predecessors such as Madhavendra Puri, Ishwar Puri. Madhavendra Puri is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's Param Guru, grandfather Guru. Ishwar Puri, his guru, his mother, Shachimata, his father, Jagannath Mishra, and Advaita Acharya. They all appear first to set the scene, so to speak, for the appearance of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So Advaita Acharya, his name, just like all the names in Shastra, are very significant. His name is also very significant and lets us know what he's about. Advaita, anyone know what it means? Advaita? Dvaita means? Huh? Dvaita, no, that's Dvandva. Dvaita means difference, and Advaita means non-difference, as a negation. Advaita means non-different. So he's non-different from the Supreme Lord. In the Panchatattva, then, we have, as Kaviraj Goswami says, Panchatattvatmakam Krishnam Bhakta Rupa Swarupakam Bhaktavataram Bhaktakyam Namami Bhakta Shaktikam. In the Panchatattva, he offers his obeisances then to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who appears in 5 features. Bhakta Rupa, the form of a devotee, is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Bhakta Swarupa, the expansion of a devotee, is Lord Nityananda. Bhakta Avatar, the incarnation of a devotee, this is Advaita Acharya. Right? So those 3 members of the Panchatattva, they are all Vishnu Tattva. They are all the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but with slightly different manifestations. And Kaviraj Goswami says that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu expands himself into 5 forms to relish different flavors, different pastimes. So the first three, Lord Chaitanya, Bhakta Rupa, Lord Nityananda, Bhakta Swarupa, and Advaita Acharya. Bhakta Avatar, they're all Vishnu Tattva. And then Bhaktakyam means Srivas Thakur, He's a pure devotee in the Jiva Tattva category. And Bhakta Shaktikam, Gadadhar Pandit, he is the energy of a devotee. What is the energy of a devotee? That energy is called Bhakti. Therefore he is referred to as Bhakta Shaktikam, the internal potency of the Lord. So in this way, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appears in 5 features to relish 5 different kinds of pastimes. So as Advaita Acharya, we'll hear some of those pastimes that he relishes. Advaita again means non-different. He's non-different from the Supreme Lord, being in the Vishnu Tattva category. And then Acharya, who knows what Acharya means? A teacher, yeah. A teacher, Acharya means a teacher. And from the word achar, which means behavior. So, in other words, a real teacher is someone who teaches by their own behavior. People don't listen so much to what we say, they listen much more to what we do. Right? Like Krishna says, yad yada charati shreshtas. The shreshta, the leader, has to have the achar, the right behavior. Because whatever behavior they have, whether it's right or wrong, tat tat eve taro janaha, the ordinary people will follow it. So if he's actually going to be a teacher or a leader, then he has to have the proper achar, the proper behavior. He has to walk his talk, so to speak. So Advaita Acharya means the non-different teacher. That's literally what his name means. He's non-different from the Supreme Lord, Advaita, and he teaches the path of bhakti. Therefore he's known as Advaita Acharya. And although he's non-different from the Supreme Lord, Advaita Acharya always sees himself as a servant of the Supreme Lord, specifically a servant of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu considered Advaita Acharya his guru, because Advaita Acharya was the god brother of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's guru, Ishwar Puri. And the etiquette is that those who are god brothers of one's guru are respected on the same level as one's guru. So Lord Chaitanya always wanted to follow this etiquette, but this was a cause of great distress for Advaita Acharya. Mahaprabhu would come and offer him obeisances, touch his feet, offer him prayers. But Advaita Acharya was very disturbed by this, because he always saw himself as a servant of the Lord. So it became so disturbing for Advaita Acharya that he tried to force Mahaprabhu to treat him as a subordinate by correcting him. And in order to procure that kind of reaction from Mahaprabhu, he resorted to what might be considered a rather extreme strategy for a Vaishnava, which was that he began speaking Mayavad philosophy. He was serious. He really he really wanted Mahaprabhu to treat him as a subordinate. So today we're going to hear about 3 kinds of nectar through the example of Advaita Acharya, the non-different teacher of bhakti. The first type of nectar is the nectar of correction. We all relish that nectar, don't we? The nectar of correction. It's generally not the easiest type of nectar for us to swallow, because, well, speaking for myself, I have a false ego, so my false ego doesn't like to be corrected. I like to be the one correcting others, but for me to be corrected, this is a great offence. So there are, generally speaking, at least for us as practitioners, easier forms of nectar for us to swallow. But Advaita Acarya shows us by his example how being corrected by a Vaishnava is a great privilege and a great joy, because that correction coming from a superior is a sign of love. Chanakya Pandit is quoted as saying that those you love, you chastise or correct. So this pastime then of Advaita Acarya and his servant Kamalakanta Vishwas really highlights this in a dramatic way. Again, we might find this hard to understand, but let's just hear it anyway, and just by hearing it we will come closer to a correct understanding. So Advaita Acarya, he had a very confidential servant named Kamalakanta Vishwas. And this servant, he knew all the dealings of Advaita Acarya. Now, when he was in Jagannath Puri, he sent a note to the king, Maharaj Prataparudra, and no one knew of this note except Kamalakanta and the king, but somehow or other it reached the hands of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And this note, it established that Advaita Acarya was the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And in the same note, it also mentioned that Advaita Acarya, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, had recently incurred a debt of about 300 rupees. And so Kamalakanta, the personal secretary of Advaita Acarya, was requesting the king to please liquidate this debt. Right? So when Mahaprabhu heard this, he read the note and he became very unhappy. And he said, he, Kamalakanta, has established Advaita Acarya as an incarnation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. There's nothing wrong with this, for he is indeed the Lord himself. But he has made the incarnation of Godhead a poverty-stricken beggar. Right? How can God be in debt to anybody? He's Sarvaloka Maheshwaram. He's the proprietor of everything. So this was not appreciated at all by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, that in one breath you say that he's the Supreme Lord, he's the proprietor of everything, and then in the same breath you also ask if his debt can be liquidated. So Mahaprabhu said, therefore I shall punish him in order to correct him. So he told his servant, from this day on, do not allow that Bolia Kamalakanta Vishwas to come here. He just told him, I never want to see you again. Now, when Kamalakanta heard this, he was very unhappy because he was a great devotee of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. But, well, understandably, imagine if Mahaprabhu said it to us, it'd be shocking to say the least. But when Advaita Acarya heard this, he was very happy. He was greatly pleased. And when he saw his servant Kamalakanta very unhappy, he said to him, you are greatly fortunate to have been punished by the Supreme Lord, the Personality of Godhead, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He said, formerly, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu always respected me as his senior, but I did not like such respect. Therefore, My mind being afflicted by unhappiness, I made a plan. Thus I expounded the Yoga Vashishta, so Shastra, Yoga Shastra, which considers liberation the ultimate goal of life. For this, the Lord became angry at me and treated me with apparent disrespect. When chastised by Lord Chaitanya, I was very happy to receive a punishment similar to that awarded Sri Mukunda. A similar punishment was awarded to Mother Shachi Devi. Who could be more fortunate than she to receive such punishment? So this is very counterintuitive, you could say. You're fortunate to receive the punishment of never being able to see Chaitanya Mahaprabhu again from the Lord himself. So after trying to pacify Kamalakanta in this way, Advaita went to see Mahaprabhu and said to him, I cannot understand your transcendental pastimes. You have shown more favour to Kamalakanta than you generally show to me. So how is that he showed more favour to Kamalakanta? Because when Advaita Acharya was preaching this Yoga Vasishta, this impersonal philosophy, Mahaprabhu went to his house and actually beat him, right? So you think, well, that's pretty effective chastisement, to get beaten. But he says, no, you've shown more favour to Kamalakanta with your punishment of him. How was that? He says, the favour you have shown Kamalakanta is so great that even to me you have never shown such favour. What offence have I committed at your lotus feet so as not to be shown such favour? Hearing this, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu laughed with satisfaction and immediately called Kamalakanta Bishwas. Advaita Acharya then said to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, why have you called back this man, allowing him to see you? He has cheated me in 2 ways. So when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu heard this, his mind was satisfied, and only Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Advaita Acharya could understand each other's minds. It's quite esoteric. But the point Advaita Acharya is making is that the way you chastised me was just through beating me, but you never told me that you never wanted to see me again. But with Kamalakanta, you said, I never want to see you ever again. Like, that's a greater form of chastisement. So he got more mercy than I did. You never told me to get lost and I never want to see you again. And then on top of that, after saying that to him, then you call him back into your presence. So he's got two types of mercy here that I never got. It's a bit of a head scratcher, isn't it? So here Advaita Acharya shows the nectar of correction, an important lesson for us to consider seriously. For those you love, you correct them if it is necessary. That correction is a sign of affection. An important lesson for us to consider. And this leads us into what our next form of nectar, which is the nectar of contradiction. In one sense, that correction is also a contradiction, but this is, in one sense, an even greater contradiction. We've heard how Advaita Acharya considers himself a servant of Mahaprabhu, but Mahaprabhu considers him his master. So he says, Kaviraj Goswami says later on in the Adi Leela, chapter 6, text 41 to 43, to maintain the proper etiquette for the principles of religion, Lord Chaitanya bows down at the lotus feet of Sri Advaita Acharya with reverential prayers and devotion. Sri Advaita Acarya, however, considers Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu his master, and he thinks of himself as a servant of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He forgets himself in the joy of that conception and teaches all living entities, "You are servants of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu." So he forgets himself in the joy of that conception, of being a servant of Lord Chaitanya. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada says, the transcendental devotional service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is so ecstatic that even the Lord himself plays the part of a devotee. Forgetting himself to be the Supreme, he personally teaches the whole world how to render service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So this is the nectar of contradiction. So just as the nectar of correction is a head scratcher, this is also a real head scratcher. How can it be that the devotee of Krishna enjoys more by serving Krishna than Krishna does by receiving the service? Isn't that a contradiction? And therefore all the incarnations of Krishna and Krishna himself come as Bhakta avatars. This is explained in the chapter we're reading from today. All the incarnations of Krishna, they have the right to come as devotees, Bhakta avatars, because there's more pleasure in serving Krishna than in being Krishna and receiving that service. Everybody in the material world thinks that the greatest pleasure is to be served by everyone. In other words, to be God. But in this chapter 6, we hear this verse, Krishna Das Abhimane Jai Ananda Sindhu Koti Brahma Sukha Nohe Tar Ek Bindu. The conception of servitude to Sri Krishna generates such an ocean of joy in the soul. Try and visualize that, an ocean of joy in the soul, that even the joy of oneness with the Absolute, if multiplied 10 million times, could not compare to even a drop of it. So he, Advaita Acharya, says, Nityananda and I are servants of Lord Chaitanya. Nowhere else is there such joy as that which is tasted in this emotion of servitude. The most beloved goddess of fortune resides on the chest of Sri Krishna, yet she too, earnestly praying, begs for the joy of service at his feet. All the associates of Lord Krishna, such as Brahma, Shiva, Narada, Shuka and Sanatana Kumara, are very pleased in the sentiment of servitude. Sri Nityananda, the wandering mendicant, is the foremost of all the associates of Lord Chaitanya. He became mad in the ecstasy of service to Lord Chaitanya. Srivas, Haridas, Ramadas, Gadadhar, Murari, Mukunda, Chandrasekhar, Bakreshwar, and all are all glorious and are all learned scholars, but the sentiment of servitude to Lord Chaitanya makes them mad in ecstasy. Thus they dance, sing, and laugh like madmen, and they instruct everyone, just be loving servants of Lord Chaitanya! Because they have that mood of sharing. That's the mood of a devotee. They want to share the ecstasy of devotional service. So although they're the Supreme Lord, and also other devotees who are not the Supreme Lord are quoted here as well, whether they're the Supreme Lord in the mood of a devotee or they're the devotees of the Lord, they're all begging everybody, just be loving servants of Lord Chaitanya. That is the greatest joy. Even greater than being the Supreme Lord and receiving everybody's service is the joy of being a devotee. Therefore the Lord himself comes in so many Bhakta avatars. Kaviraj Goswami goes on, the position of being such an incarnation is above all others. Why is that? Why is the position of being an incarnation of a devotee above all other incarnations? He explains the position of a devotee is higher than that of equality with Lord Krishna, for the devotees are dearer to Lord Krishna than his own self. Right? Lord Krishna considers his pure devotees like Uddhava greater than himself. In this connection, the scriptures provide an abundance of evidence. Therefore we hear Advaita Acarya in his Krishna Das Abhimane, in his conception of servitude to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, chanting the famous shloka, Chaitanya Das Muni, Chaitanya Das Muni, Tanra Dasir Das. I am a servant of Lord Chaitanya, a servant of Lord Chaitanya. I am a servant of Lord Chaitanya and a servant of his servants. Saying this, Advaita Prabhu dances and loudly sings. Then at the next moment, he quietly sits down. Gets overwhelmed by this mentality of servitude to the Supreme Lord. So this is the nectar of contradiction, another important lesson given by Advaita Acarya for us to consider. If we're not feeling that ecstasy, then we have to ask ourselves, what is my service attitude? And then finally, the third form of nectar displayed by Advaita Acarya for us to consider today is the nectar of compassion. So we heard about that in the purport. As we were trying to explain, as explained in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, that before Mahaprabhu's appearance, he sends incarnations of his respectable predecessors like Madhavendra Puri, Ishwara Puri, Shachimata, Jagannath Mishra and Advaita Acarya. So what happened after Advaita Acarya appeared? What did he see? This leads up to today's verse. Advaita Acarya having appeared, he found the world devoid of devotional service to Sri Krishna because people were engrossed in material affairs. Everyone was engaged in material enjoyment, whether sinfully or virtuously. No one was interested in the transcendental service of the Lord, which can give total relief from the repetition of birth and death. This was his vision 500 or so years ago in Navadvip Dham. You can go today to Advaita Bhavan, where Advaita Acharya's house was. Right, it's just next to Yogapit, the parent site of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in Mayapur. And at that place he looked out and that's what he saw. People were just engrossed in material activities and there was no devotional service. So what was his reaction to that? We get to today's verse. Seeing the activities of the world, the Acharya felt compassion and began to ponder how he could act for the people's benefit. So, Kaviraj Goswami says, seeing the activities of the world. So, at that time, he was just seeing Navadvip. Not necessarily the world, but no doubt he was thinking that, well, if in Mahaprabhu's own Dham, Navadvip Dham, Mayapur Dham, we see people just engaged in material activities and there's no bhakti, then how's there going to be any bhakti anywhere else? Right? Anywhere else in the world. So he felt compassion and began to ponder how he could act for the people's benefit. So this is the prelude to Advaita Acarya calling for the appearance of Lord Chaitanya. Right, so if you go to Advaita Bhavan, then you'll see there are deities there of Advaita Acarya and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and Advaita Acarya is worshipping the Shalagram Shila. Right? calling for the appearance of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So he decided that the best way he could act for the people's benefit was to call for the appearance of the Supreme Lord himself, for Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself. As Prabhupada explained in today's purport, although he was powerful enough to do the work himself, he felt as a humble servant that only if the Lord himself appeared could this situation of Kali Yuga be rectified. Mahaprabhu is known as Kali Yuga Pavana, the saviour of Kali Yuga. So this is how Mahaprabhu chooses to appear in this world, to answer the call of his devotee Advaita Acharya. And Prabhupada gives some amplification to the situation in the purport today, the situation of godlessness in the world. And he talks about the first-class prisoners of the material world who wrongly think themselves happy because they are rich, powerful, resourceful, and so on. But they don't realise that at any moment they can die. And then all their so-called opulence is gone. Right? Yes, death is the great equaliser for everybody. Everybody's unequal during life, according to their karma, but at death, everybody's equal. Right? Because whatever you have, you leave it behind, and into your next body you go, taking with you just the reactions to your activities. So these materially opulent people are considered the first-class prisoners in the material world. In other words, the material world, Durga, is known as Durga. Durga means the prison house, right? So actually everybody in this world, whether they are first-class prisoners or second-class or third-class, they're all prisoners. They're all in the jailhouse of the material world. And everybody's wearing their prison suit, just like in the old, remember these old movies I used to watch as a kid? They were, I don't know why, they always had these movies about prisoners, and they wear these stripy, do you see those old-fashioned stripy suits that they got them to wear? I think the idea was that if someone escaped, that they would be really easy to identify because they had these just huge stripes across them. No one wears stuff like that, right? So it's kind of a ridiculous outfit that all the prisoners are made to wear to identify themselves as prisoners. So that the prisoners in the material world, their outfit is the material body. That's the prison suit. That identifies you as an offender to the Supreme Lord. You have broken the laws of the spiritual world. You've been found guilty and sentenced to life imprisonment or many lives of imprisonment in a material body in the material world. But under the influence of Maya, you can think, well, actually, I'm enjoying in this world. I'm not a prisoner, I'm free. Look, I've got all this money, I've got all this false prestige, I have so many possessions. Everybody thinks I'm the greatest. Well, not everybody, but just about everybody. So in this way, life's full of illusions. We're experts at self-deception. But the reality is we're just being punished by material nature through the process of birth, death, old age and disease. And no matter how you try to adjust your situation in this world, you cannot adjust your way out of birth, old age, disease and death. That's why Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, Janma mrityu jara vyadi dukkha doshanu darshanam, that if you're actually intelligent, you see the fault in material existence, the dosha. You have darshan, a vision of the fault in this world, which is that you have to get old, sick and die, and that ruins all your plans for happiness. And not only that, then you have to take birth again, according to your karma, and go through the same process. Birth after birth after birth, just remaining a prisoner of material nature. Prabhupada says here, it's just such these words are just so powerful. He says that these foolish creatures do not know that they are nothing but play dolls in the hands of material nature. You ladies ever play with dolls when you're little Barbies or whatever? Yeah. You just imagine, sometimes you just get frustrated with the doll and just snap its head off, right? Break its leg off or something, throw it at the wall, Whoa, Barbie bounces off the wall, pretty cool. So that's what material nature does to us. We just play dolls in the hands of material nature. When our karma reaches a certain point, material nature just breaks us in half, right? So they don't know that they're nothing but play dolls in the hands of material nature, and that at any moment material nature's, get this, pitiless intrigues. Just such beautiful words that Prabhupada uses, right? Pitiless intrigues can crush to dust all their plans for godless activities. Just so visual. Crushed to dust. And then he explains they're greatly negligent of the actual purpose of human life. They neglect the major problems of life, birth and death, etc., and busy themselves in false things that cannot help them solve their real problems. It's like our Guru Maharaj, His Holiness Devamrita Swami, he used to give this example in the 90s of how particularly Westerners have this particular focus and therefore this approach to life which causes them to be greatly negligent of the actual purpose of human life. So there was a man back in the mid-90s here in New Zealand who tried to what do they call ride a kayak? What do they ride them? They row them. What do they do with a kayak? Row them. So he tried to row this kayak over the Hooker Falls. You know the Hooker Falls? It's this huge waterfall, right? So maybe it's one of the biggest in New Zealand. And anyone with just any common sense knows that that's just not going to work, right? So in front of busloads of Japanese tourists who are on the other side of the falls, Japanese, they love cameras and taking photos and everything, so they were taking photos of the falls. Oh, look, there's a man rowing down the fall. Now, what's he doing, Predictably, he went over the falls and he drowned. All right? So Guru Maharaj explained that, uses this as an example to show how people in Kali Yuga focus on things that are non-essential and ignore things that are essential. So he would use this as an example in his old loft talks, and he would say to people, so if you were one of those Japanese tourists watching this man go towards the falls, what would you be thinking? Would you be thinking, wow, he looks really cool in that kayak? What style! I mean, just see how he holds his, what do they call those things? Paddle. Just see how he holds that paddle. I mean, I don't think I've ever seen anybody hold a paddle quite like that. So unique. And are those like Serengeti sunglasses he's got on? Wow, man, they like mirrors and everything, trendy. I think he's like gelled his hair up as well, just for the occasion. Is that what you would be thinking if you were the Japanese tourist watching this man go towards the falls? Of course not. You would be thinking, what an idiot. He's finished. It's just a couple of seconds till he goes over the falls and he's gone. So he's explaining that's the approach of particularly people in the Western world to life. Don't worry about death. Don't worry about the inevitable end of this body. Just be here now. Live for the moment. Enjoy your senses. Get some consumer products. Have some relationships. Feel good. LG, life's good. And yeah, you probably will die at some point in the future. You're old and sick and die. But anyway, you don't want to be negative, right? Because being negative spoils the moment. And it's all about just being here now, enjoying the moment, just like the guy in the canoe. He's just going towards the edge of the falls and he's just being here now. It doesn't matter that he's, going to... And then he also would say, the Japanese tourists watching the man bobbing up and down, under this huge waterfall. Whoa, I think he actually went under for about 30 seconds there and, held his breath for 30 seconds. I think that might be a world record. I don't think anybody else has ever done that before. If you're smart, then you have to consider the realities of life. Therefore, Krishna says, Janma mrityu jara vyadi dukkha doshanu darshanam. If you're actually intelligent, you see the fault in material existence. And you want to get out of that situation, that faulty situation. And Prabhupada explains here, there are first-class prisoners, there are also the third-class prisoners. They don't have any knowledge of this either. They just try to imitate the first class. Let's go to the lotto shop this weekend, Powerball's on, someone's going to win the $50 million, it could be me. So they don't have any clue either about what they should really be focusing on. So this is, of course, very unfortunate. So Vaishnavas, they're known as Kripa Sindhu. They're like oceans of mercy. They're not Mayavadis, simply wanting their own liberation. Right? Like Prahlad Maharaj says, Shoche tato vimukachetasa indriyata maya sukhaya baram udvahato vimudhan. He says, even though these people are extremely foolish, I don't wish to be liberated by myself. I'm just lamenting for these foolish people who are carrying the false burden of material happiness. Maya sukhaya baram udvahato vimudhan. Yeah, they're super foolish. They're carrying this false burden. I just have to enjoy myself before, the end. It's a false burden. It's super foolish, but Prahlad Maharaj says, I'm concerned with their welfare. So compassion, that is the heart of the Vaishnava. And we see that today in our verse regarding Advaita Acarya, who's considering out of compassion how to benefit these foolish people. He's referred to as Acharya Karuna Hridoy, the teacher whose heart is full of compassion. So compassion, that is one of Krishna's qualities, and that compassionate nature is manifested most in Srimati Radharani. Who carries that compassion in this world? That is the representatives of Krishna and Srimati Radharani, the Vaishnava devotees. There are 3 types of Vaishnava devotees. 2 of those 3 types don't share Krishna consciousness. That's the first-class devotee and the third-class devotee. Neither of them share Krishna consciousness. But the second-class devotee, the Madhyama Adhikari, they, out of kripa, out of mercy, they, being inspired by Bhakti Devi within their own hearts, they share bhakti with others. So they're the carriers of Krishna's mercy, of Radharani's mercy. Now, so as beginners, we may not feel compassion all the time, like Advaita Acharya and these other great devotees like Vasudev Dutt. But if we serve those who do have that compassion, we serve our spiritual master by assisting them in distributing bhakti, then gradually we'll make advancement toward this platform. The heart will become soft. The more we try to give Krishna to others, the more we get Krishna for ourselves. Prabhupada also quotes the Bhagavad Gita in the Purport Bhagavad Gita 1869. Prabhupada would quote this verse a lot. Nacha tasman manusheshu kashtamev kritamaha. Krishna saying, no one's more dear to me, nor will there ever be one more dear to me than the one who tries to share my message with others. So the more compassion that we try to show, the more we try to assist those that have genuine compassion, then the more we are eligible for the compassion of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So this is the lesson on the nectar of compassion we get today from Advaita Acharya on his appearance day. Seeing the activities of the world, he felt compassion and began to ponder how he could act for people's benefit. And therefore with loud cries he begged for the appearance of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the most magnanimous form of Krishna. So today we can pray to him, Advaita Acharya. He's Karuna Hriday. His heart is full of compassion. We can pray to him for the awakening of genuine compassion in our hearts today on his appearance day. Sri Advaita Acharya Prabhu Ki Jai. Hare Krishna. Yes. Hare Krishna.
I have a question, but I'll start with the first one.
I was just wondering how we can, in your rich experience in devotional service, we might have, seen, how do you say, I guess I have a question about how to develop and deepen our service attitude. Is it something that just comes with time, or is it practice, or have you noticed for yourself by focusing in a certain area that develops?
Do you think your service attitude is not good enough?
Yeah.
Whenever I see you, you're always like, what can I do? I always think, God, I wish I was like that. I wish I was like Govinda Kanta. How can I serve you? It's more of a challenge as one becomes older because of the reality of familiarity with devotees, with devotional service. Then it's a bit more challenging. How to increase our service attitude. Yeah. Well, just by hearing, we should be inspired. That is the basic principle. Do you feel more inspired after hearing about Advaita Acharya? Yeah, me too. It's the process. That's why hearing is the is the first of the 9 processes of pure devotional service. So we have to make sure that we're hearing regularly. Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya. Bhagavatam says, daily. Otherwise it's so easy for us to just start thinking, such an old habit of thinking, actually I'm the one that should be served. Yes, now I'm an older devotee. Surely that means that I'm now entitled to some service. Or maybe a lot of service. So one has to keep hearing these chapters from the Adi Leela about the Krishna Das Abhimani Jayananda Sindhu Koti Brahma Sukha Nahi Tare Kabundu. That actually the conception of servitude to Sri Krishna generates such an ocean of joy in the soul that even the joy of impersonal oneness, it can't compare to even a drop of that ocean. You have to keep hearing that every day, and it starts to sink in. And just over time, if you're not already, you stick at the process of bhakti, regularly hearing the Bhagavatam and serving the person Bhagavatam, then you'll just become more and more comfortable being a servant, because that's our natural position. Jivara Swarupoi Krishnera Nityadas. It's natural, like Prahlad Maharaj says. He says it takes a lot of work to go to hell. Think about it. It takes a lot of work, right? It's like I look out my window on Monday morning in Willis Street and see all the people going to work. What are they working for? They're working to go to hell, actually. because they're just working for their own sense gratification. Miserable existence. You don't believe me? Just have a look at their faces on Monday morning. Miserable. It's just a horrible, miserable life, just working for yourself, for me. Much better is to try and cultivate the mood of service, which is natural. Prahlad says it takes great endeavour to go to hell, but to serve Krishna is very easy. All you do is chant Hare Krishna. Just chant Hare Krishna, read the Bhagavatam, take prasad. What's the problem? What's the difficulty, like Srila Prabhupada would say? Right? Very easy. So it's natural, and as we go on, it becomes more and more natural. Nitya Siddha Krishna Prem Sadhya Kabunoi. Mahaprabhu said to Rupa Goswami, it's not something external. It's not something to be gained. Something that's already there in the heart. Just has to be awakened through the legitimate process of sadhana bhakti. So you perform that legitimate process in a legitimate way and you'll see. So it's mystical. And you just start thinking, I don't want to do anything else. I don't want to do anything else. Like what? What is there? Like sometimes I start fantasizing about moving away from the CBD centre of town. Oh, maybe move to Mayapur, yeah. Or maybe if not Mayapur, then what about maybe just Kapiti? The weather's a lot better, there's not so much wind, the Tararuas, they block out the southerly. That, microclimate, good for the health. And yeah, it sounds pretty good, right? You just sit there on the beach, with your hammock or something. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Oh, maybe I'll read a bit now. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Oh, wake up, Prabhu, time for prasad. Oh, thanks for reminding me. But who could live without Bhakti Lounge? I just always think that. I can't live without Bhakti Lounge. That's our Prabhu Datta Desh. That's the service station we've been given by our spiritual master. That's where the nectar is. Anyway, I could go on. Anyone else have a question? Yeah, Prabhuji. Yeah. No.
It's such a nice
Hare
stuff,
Krishna.
Prabhu. I've been spending a bit of time with family recently and just reflecting. It seems like some people might be very firmly atheistic, but still embodying what seem like kind of spiritual qualities, like they're very kind and they seem quite loving to people. They do good pious things, helping local charity or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So how is that, and how can we be convinced that those people actually need to connect with God?
How is it that they are apparently pious, although they're atheistic?
Yeah.
You remember in the Gita, Krishna says that the demons, they do perform sacrifice. Right? He says they proudly perform sacrifice in name only. Right? So, to be a demon simply means that you're considering you're the master, you're the controller, you're the enjoyer. Right? Ishvaraham aham bhogi, siroham balavan sukhi. It's a particular approach to life that if you actually want to be successful at it, you have to perform some kind of sacrifice. Right? And you look at the great demons in the Bhagavatam, they didn't just get there by wishful thinking. Like Hiranyakashipu, Ravan. Right? They performed great austerities, great sacrifices, worship the demigods, Lord Shiva, Lord Brahma, to get that kind of piety necessary to gain that kind of power. The problem was that because of that demoniac mentality, they just misused it for their own pleasure. How can we see that they need something else? Well, there's whatever situation we're in this world, whether it's pious or impious or mixed, it's all temporary. And Advaita Acarya, when he was surveying the scene in Navadvip 500 years ago, Kaviraj Goswami says that he saw people performing impious and pious activities. Now today, particularly in this time and place, you're not going to see many people performing pious activities. And even if they do perform some kind of pious activity, 99% probably of what they do is impiety. Right? So they may get 1% pious reaction and then 99% impious reaction. So what to do about that? Just because someone's kind, doesn't mean that they're going to be saved from their sinful reactions. All right. Krishna says, Aham tam sabha papebhyo mokshayashami. I will save you from all your sinful reactions, but you have to surrender to me. All right. That's the condition. So unless one's actually at that point of surrender to Krishna, they're still going to have to suffer all the reactions to their sinful activities. They'll also be able to enjoy the reactions of whatever piety that they've accumulated, but it might be after a very long time. Right? Remember the history of King Nriga, super pious Kshatriya in the Bhagavatam, right? Gave more cows in charity to brahmanas than drops of rain, in a rainstorm, or gave more cows in charity to brahmanas than more grains of sand on a beach, right? Because that's actual piety, not like just going and helping out at the local church or, like that. Actual piety means, according to the Vedic Karmakanda division of the Vedas, you perform prescribed activities that generate pious credits, such as giving cows in charity to Brahmins. Ever heard of anyone giving cows in charity to Brahmins? No, in New Zealand they're very expert at killing cows. Basically the whole economy is based on cow slaughter, right? So one has to get those reactions, unless they do some devotional service, like Prabhupada says in the purport. He says this is called Maya. People held in the grip of Maya are thrown into oblivion after death, and as a result of their karma, in the next life they become dogs or gods, although most of them become dogs. Right? To become gods in the next life, they must engage in the devotional service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Otherwise, they are sure to become dogs or hogs in terms of the laws of nature. Right? So if somehow or other one can perform some devotional service, that will create for them at least a human birth, generally speaking, in the next life, rather than going into the dog and hog species. Right? So at least we want that for people. Like Srila Prabhupada said, if someone just takes one of my books in their hand and just appreciates it, doesn't even buy it, just appreciates it, says, oh, that's a nice book. See, that's enough to give them a human birth in the next life. That's real piety. Now, that's beyond giving cows in charity to Brahmins. That's Bhakti Sukriti. That's the piety of devotional service. See how powerful it is, just that small appreciation for the devotee and the Shastra, and they get such an amazing result. What to speak of if they buy it? And what to speak of if they read it? And actually surrender to Krishna. Then they can make a permanent solution to their to the real problems of life. But you've got to start somewhere, right? So generally people start with that Agyata Sukriti, unknown devotional service, so appreciating the book, appreciating a devotee, unknowingly doing some kind of service, giving a donation, opening the door for a devotee, like that. And in that way, they get that Bhakti Sukriti even though it's unknown, and they can begin to develop an attraction to performing devotional service in a intentional way, right? But without that, then it'd be very unlikely that people in the age of Kali are going to get anywhere, right? So in your family situation, families of devotees are the most fortunate. They generally have no idea about the good fortune that they're going to experience in the next life. Right? Sometimes devotees, even their family also becomes devotees. It's very common in India. Sometimes happens in the West as well. Is your mother listening to this class? No. Yeah, like Govinda Kanta's mother, she's extremely favourable. I was just saying to Kadirvan and Trent the other day, I wouldn't be surprised if she takes up bhakti full time. It does happen. My wife's father, he took up bhakti practice at the age of about 65, after his daughter had been a devotee for over 20 years. It does happen. But even if that doesn't happen, they'll still get incalculable benefit for having a devotee in their family. So the best thing a devotee can do for their own family is to practice Krishna consciousness very seriously, and of course, set a good example and try to help the family to be favourable to them, and in that way everyone will benefit. Okay, I think we'll stop there. Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita ki jai, Sri Advaita Acarya Prabhu ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Shri Panchatattva ki jai, Go Premanande, Hari Hari Bol.